Hi students, in this section we're going to be working with solving decimal equations. So we're going to get into some examples right away here. I just want to mention the last few equation type problems we've been solving have been whole number equations where you get a whole number answer. When we're working in this section, you're going to be using decimals, and when you get your final answer, it's going to be asking you specifically to round your decimal answer to either the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth. So we're going to practice some of that, and we'll also be practicing this in class. So example number 1, it says here, solve the following equation, round to the nearest hundredth. So it's important that we understand place value. Remember, you have your ones, tens, hundreds. That's to the left of the decimal. But then to the right of the decimal, you have your tenths. Oops. You have your hundredths. Notice the THS at the end. And then we have our thousandths. So we're going to be looking at numbers working with decimals to the right of the decimal place, just like I drew on the screen right here. So first example, solve this equation. Negative 38x minus 39 equals 118. Same idea. We ultimately are solving for the variable x. So we want to get the x on one side, everything else on the other side. So my first step here is we are going to add 39 to both sides. So what I'll have left here on the left is negative 38x equals 118 plus 39. That's going to give me 157 when we add that together. I still do not have x by itself yet, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 38. And now I divide. Now, when we're dividing, remember, positive divided by negative is going to give me a negative answer. And when we divide 157 divided by negative 38, we're going to get a decimal of 4.131. 5, 7, 8, 9. Notice they're asking me to round to the nearest hundredth. So when I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth, I'm looking at my hundredth number, which is going to be 3, but I technically have to look at the number just one beyond to the right of that. If this one were a 5 or higher than 5, we would round that 3 up to a 4. But since it's less than 5, it's 1. My answer is going to be x is approximately negative 4.13, and that will be my final answer. Notice I put not equal sign here, but approximate sign. Approximate sign because it's not exact, because we're working with decimals. So when you're writing your final answers in your bookwork and on quizzes and tests, working with decimals, always use the approximate symbols, which is kind of like the squiggly like that. All right, moving on to example number 2. It says solve the following equation, round to the nearest tenth. So here we're not rounding to the hundredth, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So what we have here is we have x's on both sides and we have decimal values on both sides. So we need to get all the x's on one side, all the number values on the other. So what I'm going to do, what's going to be easy to work with, is I'm going to subtract 4.5 to both sides. And 4.5 minus 4.5, that cancels to become 0. So what I'm left with here on the left is negative 7.2x equals 3.4x. Negative 49.5 minus 4.5, that's going to give me negative 54. I still need to work with that 3.4x on the right, so I'm going to subtract 3.4 on the right, 3.4x I should say, and I'm going to subtract 3.4x on the left. So on the right here, that 3.4 cancels, and negative 7.2x minus 3.4, think of adding this and then putting the number, the negative in front. So 4 and 2, that's going to give me 6. 7 and 3 is going to give me 10, so it's negative 10.6x, which equals negative 54. I want to solve for x still, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 10.6. Divide both sides by negative 10.6. So what I'm going to be left with is x equals, when I divide negative 54 divided by negative 10.6, that's going to give me a positive answer of 5.0943396. And they're wanting us to round to the nearest tenth. So I look at that tenth value, which is 0, but then I need to look, remember, 1 beyond next to it. And this is a 9, so that is greater than 5. So I'm actually going to round that 0 up to a 1. So my final answer is going to be x is approximately 5.1. Answer for example number 2. Example number 3, very similar to what we've been working with, but now we have the parentheses here on the left side. So we have negative 2 parenthesis 4.36 minus 6.92x. And then on the right, that's equal to 9.27x minus 3.87. So we're going to distribute negative 2 to both situations in the parentheses here. Negative 2 times 4.36, that's going to give me negative 8.72. Now negative 2 times a negative negative 6.92, that's going to give me a positive 13.84x, which equals 9.27x minus 3.87. So this problem here looks very similar now to the previous problem we just solved. Again, we got to get all the x's on one side, all the number decimals on the other. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to add 8.72 to both sides. On the left side, that cancels, so I have here 13.84x equals 9.27x. Negative 3.87 plus 8.7, oops, that should be a 2 right here. 8.72, that's going to give me 4.85. So now I need to get this 9.27x over to the left, so I'm going to subtract 9.27x from the right, subtract 9.27x from the left. When I subtract 9.27x from 13.84, that's going to give me 4.57x, which is equal to that 4.85. I'm going to divide this 4.57 to both sides. And I'm going to end up with x is going to equal 1.06. And it's going to give me actually a little bit longer number than that. So let me 0.61269. And they're asking to the nearest hundredth. So we're looking at the 6 right here and looking at that 1 beyond it, that 1 next to it. So since this is less than 5, we're going to leave the 6 the way it is. So x is going to be approximately here 1.06, and that'll be my final answer. That is it for this section.